So we had ended with this beautiful pastime of the adventure of Aghasur, the snake monster. And so that happened in the morning. And remember, this was the picnic day. So it was a very special day. They wanted something very, um, the boys were very excited for something to happen. And that adventure was part of their, they knew that some adventure is going to happen every day. Everything, sorry, is something with the audio? Some problem with the audio?
Some are saying it's low volume. For me, it looks fine. Maybe you can try to increase the volume if possible.
Hmm, sorry, one second. Okay, I've hopefully increased it a little bit. So at that time, after the end of that particular picnic, everyone was um, very excited at the end of that adventure, sorry. And then Krishna declared, all right, we've had our breakfast. We've had this amazing adventure. The calves are so happy, and so are we. It's time for lunch. And then everyone, all the cowherd boys were in a new joy, the ever fresh joy of lunch with Krishna. And there was already a discussion. What did you bring today? What did he bring today? Oh, what is that? And do you know what happened here? And of course, the prominent talk was, did you just see that? Aghasur? We entered and we knew nothing's going to happen. Oh, I don't know what Krishna did, but I wish I could see it. Oh, I saw everything, some of them were saying, and some were wondering, no, I think we were sleeping. No, 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 I saw everything what happened. And in this way, in a happy way, they were proceeding. They didn't know where they were going. Some were going here, some were going there, some were being called back, then some led the way, some didn't lead the way, sometimes the calves led the way. And after much joyful circling in circles, Krishna said, I have an idea. And all the boys paid attention. Yes, Krishna. Why don't we go to the banks of the river Yamuna, which is ever fresh with cooling, crystal clear waters full of roses, and the banks are so pleasing, and the sand is just the softest, the coolest, and just right for us to lay our bodies on and lie down and play and throw some mud on each other and eat our lunches. And everyone said, agreed, Haribo, this is a very good plan. Let's proceed to the Yamuna. And everyone excitedly, some were running and some were catching up. And then suddenly a game began. Who will touch Krishna first? And together, thousands of voices chanted, me, I will touch Krishna. And there was a sprint, and everyone rushed towards Krishna. And from our point of view, it may seem a little thousands of boys together and calves included running towards one tiny little 5-year-old boy. What's going to happen is going to be chaotic. But in the spiritual world, it's a completely different dynamic of competition. Can you guess who won? Who touched Krishna first? Everyone together simultaneously touched Krishna first. And everyone, all the boys and all the cows, after touching Krishna first, they looked around proudly. See, all of you, and everyone thought, and everyone had the satisfaction of touching Krishna first. And again, Krishna would run. Who will touch Krishna first? There was an intense, it was their lives depended on it. Who will touch Krishna first? All done in service to Krishna, to please him, without any envy in their heart, any real competitiveness, but just to serve Krishna. This is Krishna's picnic. Krishna said we have to have a picnic, and we are going to have the most fun we can for his pleasure. And then Krishna would run, then some other cowherd boy would say, who would touch me first? And everyone together would touch, including Krishna would touch him first. And this way they ran towards Yamuna. And then finally they came And every time Yamuna was such a beautiful river flowing right across Vrindavan. And on every picnic day, they chose a different place to sit. And sometimes they would say, this is the perfect spot today. And sometimes some would complain, no, the rocks are too hot here. Oh, this is the sand is softer. And in this way, after much joyous decision making, very serious decision making, they would conclude, this is the best place, all for Krishna. No, no, if Krishna says it's not too soft here today, oh, that's too hard, oh, oh, there's not enough shade, oh, no, these cuckoos are disturbing us too much, and finally, after so much talk, they decided this is the right place. And all of them very beautifully started sitting down one by one in a very beautiful formation. Krishna was in the center, and then there was one circle of cowherd boys, and immediately around and behind them, another larger circle, and immediately behind them, another larger circle, and another, and another. And this way, they formed a beautiful formation of concentric circles with Krishna in the center. And each and every boy was sometimes training and sometimes looking at Krishna and wondering, when will Krishna look at me? And although there were thousands of boys, each boy could see Krishna and sometimes feel Krishna sitting right next to me and felt so happy that Krishna is sitting next to me and Krishna is sitting next to me, and every boy felt the same. And then they were very excited. It's lunchtime, it's lunchtime. And then they were running around. What do we use as our plates? They didn't have any plates. They were just going to use whatever natural things they could find. Some of the boys picked up big leaves from the trees. And for each of them, it was an accomplishment. Oh, look at my plate. And some of them showed off their plates. Some of them appreciated the other plates. Some of them laughed at some of the plates. Some said, this big rock is my plate. Someone said, oh, just my hands are enough for a plate. Some said, oh, look at this beautiful lotus flower. I'm going to pluck out the bud and look at this plate of mine. And in this way, there was a nice picnic pre-arrangement for the lunch of who's going to make a very beautiful decorative plate. And everyone finally sought approval from Krishna. Krishna, what do you think of this? And Krishna said, that's the best plate I've ever seen in my life. Thank you, Krishna. Krishna, can you see this? Oh, I've never seen such a plate. And they were so thrilled. Krishna likes my plate. That was the success of their life. And finally, they started taking out all their little and big and small and preparations of all colors and shapes and sizes and forms and textures and everything their mothers had so excitedly packed for them. And with Krishna in the center, and oh, I've and that's what our Bhakti Center logo actually is. Krishna in the center, and all of us, our entire community around Krishna. And as long as Krishna is in the center, as we'll see very instructively in this story, then everything will be perfect in our lives, in our communities, in our hearts. As long as and and it's very easy to keep Krishna in the center. And as long as Krishna is in the center, we'll all remain together, united, happy. And so that's exactly how the Cowherd Boys was sitting. Maybe our Bhakti Center logo is a photograph of Cowherd Boys sitting on the banks of Yamuna and Vrindavan. And so the Cowherd Boys sat. And one by one, they started picking out their dishes and offering it to Krishna and accepting from Krishna and exchanging something and here and there. And again, this was next level excitement. What did I bring today? Although every single day of their lives they were having lunch with Krishna, but this was the best, the 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 best lunch they've ever had, ever, and ever. They were so excited. Lunch with Krishna, every moment was the best moment of their lives, and they were exchanging, offering him something, sometimes teasing him, Krishna, you want something? Aha, we're not going to give it to you. And sometimes laughing and sometimes mixing. Some of them were mixing funny things and giving it to their neighbors and let's see what he thinks. And the neighbor would have it and oh, everyone would laugh and he would make a face. And sometimes they would say, Krishna, Do you want a samosa? Krishna would say, yes, please give me the samosa. And then the boys would empty the contents of the samosa and put some flowers in it. And then say, Krishna, the samosa. And Krishna would bite the samosa and make a face because it's so bitter, and everyone would laugh, and Krishna would laugh, and then they would give him the real samosa. In this way, they were having such an amazing time. In the meanwhile, while this was happening, if you observe this painting carefully, up above, you'll see one big swan high in the sky. And that was none other than the creator of the universe, Brahma. He is sitting billions of miles above the earthly planets up in Satyaloka, where is absolute peace and joy in the deepest sattvic and absolute sattva gun everywhere. And everyone, each and every resident of that planet is a perfected yogi with all complete mystic powers and all knowledge and a lifespan unimaginable to the human mind. And Brahma heard the celebration which the demigods in the heavenly planets much below his did when Krishna killed this demon Aghasur. And the celebration was so loud it reached his planet. So he was wondering what happened. And so to inquire further, he descended on his swan carrier and he came down and he immediately knew the situation. And he knew that there was this very undefeatable demon named Aghasur who had just been killed. And who did it? This little boy, Krishna. And he was wondering, Krishna, I kind of know this boy. And although it had just been a few years when all the demigods had come and begged Vishnu to appear, and Vishnu said, I will, yet sometimes we are so forgetful and and sometimes are so easily confused. And so Brahma descended further. And by now, while descending, he had already picked up all the news. This is Krishna. Some say he's God. He is God. He's done extraordinary things. He's just a little boy, but he's God. And all these thoughts started going in his head. This is God. I agree. Yeah, he's an expansion of Vishnu, yes. But he's a little boy who steals butter, who's with all that confusion, he comes down here and he sees in front of him and he's trying to decide, is this God or not? What's going on here? And suddenly he sees that one of the boys is offering something for Krishna to eat. And just before giving it to Krishna, he puts it in his mouth and laughs loudly. And then he says, oh, this is so tasty, Krishna, you have to try it. And that half bitten little preparation, which may still have had some of his saliva on it, he put it in Krishna's mouth, and Krishna relished it like like that was the best thing he had ever eaten in his life. And Brahma said, "No way, this is not God." And in his head, he started justifying. He said, "Do you know who is God? He sits as Ajita. It was God who appeared when we were churning the ocean of milk. He appeared on this gigantic mountain which we used as a churning rod. He ascended on it in his thousand-armed form, which we rarely get to see in that fierce and in that unbearable form of Ajita. He appeared there. And when we, the highest of beings on this in this universe, worship God, do you know how many rituals and how much preparation we do, how pure we have to be, what kind of mantras we chant when we offer even a little food? And this is God who just ate something from a boy's mouth offered in joke and jest and with his saliva on it. This is not God, for God's sake. This is not God. He may be empowered by God. He may be whatever he is. He may be an extraordinary boy. This is not God. I know what God is. I'm the creator. My source is Vishnu. Of course, I know who God is. But then again, half of his mind was saying, well, there are all these stories of so many big monsters and wizards who tried to kill him, and his extraordinary birth and how he did this and that, and then he quieted himself. He said, okay, okay, I will I will test this boy and prove to myself and the world I have nothing against him. He can do what he wants. He's doing wonderful, and I don't intend to disturb anybody or cause harm to anybody in any way. But I just must test this boy for my own satisfaction. But this is not God. And Brahma, with that final conclusion in his heart, he descended. And then he played a trick. By this time, the cowherd boys were busy eating, and they were so engrossed in their lunch, which according to them went on forever. And yet, although it went on for such a long time, when the sun would even a little bit change its course, indicating the time is passing, they would be like, it's hardly been any time. Krishna, don't tell us to leave yet. We've got a lot of more things to eat, and they were in so much anxiety that lunch shouldn't end. But suddenly one of the boys says, Krishna, have you seen the calves? And then all the boys started looking around. Where are the calves? Where are the calves? And there was some anxiety. And before anyone could say anything, Krishna said, calm down. Please, 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 my dear friends, enjoy your lunch. What a special day is it, isn't it? Yes, it's picnic day. Just enjoy. I will take care of the calves. I will go and find the calves. Please, please do not leave your lunches. I will be right back. I'm sure they are right here. I'll just call them with my flute, and you know how they all come running. I'll take care of them. And so Krishna got up with a little yogurt and rice and fruit still dripping from his little tiny 5-year-old hands and eating it with his right. And in a very casual way, he went looking for the calves. And he was wondering how come the calves went so far. And as he went further, looking around, Surabhi, and he's calling out his names and he's playing his bugle horn and he's not seeing them, but he went further and he looked behind. He was so satisfied that his friends are happy. And as he went further, Brahma, in the meanwhile, descended and completely put all the cowherd boys in mystic sleep and picked them up in a magical way, absolutely unknown to them, and put them far away in a cave hidden. Safe, healthy, no harm, but completely asleep, deep sleep. They didn't know what's happening, where they are, who they are, nothing. And he went up again. And then Krishna was wondering, where are the calves? And he just couldn't find them because Brahma had hidden all the calves. All of them picked up, taken away in some faraway place, deep asleep. And Krishna, still holding that yogurt, got a little anxious. Where are the calves? And suddenly thought, I hope my friends are all right. And he came running back and he saw this. No one here. Thousands of cows and coward boys disappeared. And of course, being the Paramatma in everyone's heart, at once he knew whose trick this was. And he smiled. And in the meanwhile, Brahma had gone back doing his little test. Harmless, he's not going to harm anybody, just wanting to set things right just for myself. People can believe what they want, but I have to be clear whether this is the God or not, or this is just some extraordinary boy. And as Brahma disappeared, something wonderful happened. Krishna suddenly expanded himself into thousands and thousands of boys and calves, and all their dresses and all their features and all the things they hold and have, their habits, the way they speak, everything an exact, perfect expansion. So much so that they became so perfect and so expanded that now this Krishna himself, in the form of all of these cowherd boys and cows, came back to Vrindavan. And as soon as they entered Vrindavan, they were heartily welcomed because their parents were missing them. They went for an early picnic and they came back and everyone was hugging them. And suddenly the mothers and the fathers and they felt extra love for their children. They had never felt, they had only felt such love for Krishna. And they were wondering, why are we feeling this extra love for our children? And for the rest of that year, they loved one entire year. Krishna remained expanded as these boys and calves. Because Brahma went back for a moment and he came back in one moment. But his one moment is a year in our time. And so while all this expansion was taking place, Balaram had not come that day. And therefore, Balaram had missed this entire stealing of the calves. And he didn't know that Krishna has expanded and my real friends are not here. But just a few days before the year ended, and Krishna is going to turn 6, and Krishna expanded so well, all the boys grew. So Krishna grew in that expansion. He was exactly, no one could say who is who. No one knew that this is Krishna, but they just felt that love because it was Krishna himself. And finally, a few days before, Balram started feeling there's something wrong here. Why is it that there is these calves and cows are so madly attracted to each other? And why do I feel this attraction to all of these boys, my dear friends, as much as I feel for my brother Krishna? And then he took him in a corner and said, tell me the truth. What happened? What's going on? Something is going on here. And then Krishna briefly explained what happened. And then Balaram was simultaneously happy that finally the parents of Vrindavan, who all longed to serve Krishna as their son, who weren't envious or jealous of Mother Yashoda and Nanda for having Krishna as their son, who were as happy serving their children who will serve Krishna when they go to the picnic, but they just longed for an opportunity to serve Krishna as their own son, as their own someone they can feed with their own milk and their own hands. And for one year, their desire was completely fulfilled. And now, one year later, Brahma comes back to see what's happening. And when he descends, he suddenly sees the exact same place. Krishna sitting with the exact same yogurt and rice and fruit dripping between his fingers. And the exact same cowherd boys and calves. The exact same scene, and they're laughing and joking and frolicking. And for the first time, he is he's like, what? Um, I remember I hid the cows and the cowherd boys. And in an instant, he went to wherever he had hidden them, and there they were, deep asleep, all of them. And he came back here, and here they are. And he went back, and they're there, and they're here. And suddenly he got so bewildered. What's going on? Who is who? How could this happen? How can someone expand like this? Who are these coward boys? And all that bewilderment, he suddenly descended and got off his airplane. He couldn't, his intelligence, his mind couldn't handle what's happening. What is the truth? Tell me, reveal to me what has happened. And suddenly, right before his eyes, that very same, all those coward boys and calves and everyone started expanding. Each individual expanded into a complete Vishnu form with 4 hands and um, beautiful helmets and crowns. And not only that, but each Vishnu was complete in his manifestation. In the sense, each Vishnu had his own set of demigods worshipping the sages, the saints, the planetary systems at once. In fact, the Bhagavatam describes Brahma saw all the universes manifesting together. He saw time personified. He saw the modes of nature. He saw everything. He got so bewildered, even more than he was before. He couldn't take it anymore. And closing his eyes, he started praying, please forgive me. Please forgive me. What have I done? What have I done? And he fell off. And in an unconscious state, he fervently began to pray, please forgive me. How could I misunderstand you? How could I do this to you? What did I do? And as he begged and prayed and begged and prayed, and then Krishna took compassion on him, teaching him such A beautiful lesson in a very wonderful way. And finally, Brahma comes and falls at Krishna's feet. And Krishna is still holding that yogurt and holding the rice with the fruit dripping between his fingers. And then Brahma, the creator of the universe, who's the original source of every living being, of knowledge of the Vedas, he's got his own parampara, his disciplic succession, and everything in all humility now bent down to this little 5-year-old child and offered what in the Bhagavatam is one of the most beautiful sections of prayers, deep in philosophy, and yet so such a revelation of his heart and his longing to love and serve Krishna. And some of the prayers which I wanted to say, but I think we're short of time, but I'll just mention one in which a very famous prayer from this particular pastime is quoted often, in which Brahma recognized that if any of us, whatever we go through, whatever hardships we go through, whatever downs and whatever lows and distresses we go through in our life, if we just accept it as perhaps this is something which I may have done to someone or something, and in some way, just so that I understand and 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 recognize it, Krishna very kindly is not even giving me back what I deserve. He's actually just giving me some little small portion of he's just giving me like a tiny pat and telling me don't do this again. And if I just accept this and I'm always grateful in all circumstances of life, always remembering that everything happening in my life is Krishna's grace. And if I always hold Krishna in the center, like the Bhakti Center logo, like the boys around him, then he says, then liberation is my rightful claim. Then I can claim that yes, I will definitely perfect this life. I will definitely achieve spiritual perfection. And this way, Brahma finally forgiven, and then he leaves for his upper planets. And Krishna and the real cowherd boys who now didn't know that 1 year had passed. And therefore, now when they go home, they think that they're reporting what happened in the morning was Aghasur is killed. And therefore, 1 year later, they speak the story of what happened a year ago. And then the next day, they say, what's the adventure today? And we are that's our next story, but just to give you a little suspense cliffhanger, they are going to a place to eat a fruit which they have never eaten before, which even the citizens of heaven long to eat but aren't allowed to. And they're going to breach that heavily secured fortress and eat these fruits. And let's see what happens. Thank you very much, and let us have a wonderful night meditating on these sweet, sweet pastimes of Krishna, who's right here performing these pastimes in our heart and somewhere in some universe still happening and always happening in the spiritual world. Let's have sweet dreams of Krishna. Thank you very much.